Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Ponte, and I'm the Director of Events and Programs for the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the entire team here, it is my pleasure to welcome you to 2025 Update from the Commissioners, the latest in our webinar series. Thank you for joining. Before we get going, there are just a few things we'd like to share with you about today's session. All participants are in listen-only mode. Please submit questions using the Q&A function. Time permitting, we will answer them by the end of the session. We will also use the Q&A feature to share useful links and other materials. This meeting is being recorded, and we will make the recording available to you on our website in the next few days. And finally, if you lose your connection, please use the same Zoom link to reconnect. We would now like to begin by thanking our sponsors. Our presenting sponsor is MEMIC. Our 2025 webinar series sponsors are AARP, Bangor Savings Bank, Kennebec Savings Bank, and Northeast Delta Dental. And our premier sponsor is Hammond Lumber Company. And now here is a word from premier sponsor Hammond Lumber Company.
Hammond Lumber Company is a fourth-generation family-owned business. Founded in 1953, Hammond Lumber has steadily grown into the region's largest independent lumber and building materials supplier. We want to thank you for supporting our family business this past year and every year. It is our privilege to serve the needs of our communities across Maine and New Hampshire. When you're ready to tackle your next building or remodeling project, find the products and services you need at Hammond Lumber. Whether you're a contractor, homeowner, or do-it-yourselfer, Hammond's team of over 950 dedicated employees has the knowledge and training to help you keep your project on time and on budget. Your Hammond sales rep can assist with project estimating and planning and help you select your materials from Hammond's extensive in-store showroom displays, where you can explore the latest innovative trends from leading suppliers and designers. When you find the look you like, Hammond's design team will help you make it your own. All of your project design fees will be refunded when you purchase your materials from Hammond. And Hammond delivers right to your worksite from any of their 22 locations across Maine and New Hampshire. Hammond can work with you or your builder through project completion, with on-site follow-up available if needed. From our family to yours, we wish you success and good health as we move through the new year. Learn more at hammondlumber.com or stop by the Hammond location nearest you. From our entire team, thank you for choosing Hammond Lumber Company as your building project partner.
I will now turn it over to Michael Bork, who will provide some remarks on behalf of today's presenting sponsor, MEMIC. Mike serves as president and CEO of MEMIC, and he also serves as the board chair for the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. We are happy he is here with us today. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Thanks much for the invitation. And just want to say briefly, MEMIC is proud to be the presenting sponsor here today. I can't whistle like the wonderful Hammond ad, but we are Maine's largest and leading workers' compensation insurance company. With that, we insure many of you in the audience. And I want to remind everybody, regardless of whether you're insured with MEMIC or not, did a program yesterday on Maine Public about slips and falls in the workplace, but outside of the workplace as well. Kim Block from WGME 13 is helping us to get the message out. She, of course, suffered her own significant head injury as a result of a fall in a driveway. So my message only to all of you today is to be careful out there, shovel sand, take care of your walkways, wear good footwear, and think about your employees and people who work for you, as well as your customers, as we go through the winter season. So with that, thank you. And I want to thank all the commissioners for joining us here today. I know it's a very, very busy time, so we appreciate your time. And I think now I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
Well, thank you, Michael. Sage advice. This is the slippery season in Maine. And furthermore, it is hard to compete with the iconic jingle of Hammond Lumber. It's been a while since I'm trying to remember the first time I heard that, but we're going back a few years. But I did want to thank MEMIC and your leadership with the Chamber. It's a great partnership for the business community, what you're providing with the sponsorship today. I did want to thank all of the commissioners for joining. This has been something we've gotten great feedback on the past. With so much going on at federal, state level, it is sometimes only so much that attention and press coverage that we get on what really matters for our state's economy. And the four commissioners and director that we have today, they really are at a position to get a sense of where the state's going, what the key priorities are from their departments. And we couldn't be more pleased with the roster that we have today. I do want to start with Commissioner Fortman, who I have been working with over a year in this role. The DOL has been at the forefront of training, integrating a new population into Maine's workforce. The legislature has had a lot of expectations in delivering new regulations at the DOL, and they really have a committed group of personnel being led by Commissioner Fortman. We are going to have each commissioner speak for about 10 minutes, hopefully pause for some questions, but I'll turn to you, Commissioner Fortman, for the key priorities and activities at the Department of Labor. Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And I really appreciate the shout out to the team here at DOL. I do have the honor, privilege to work with an amazing group of very dedicated public servants here. And one of the things that we are trying to do is to listen to questions that we receive about our work and also be very responsive and providing answers to the community, whether that's the business community or workers. We think that we have kind of a dual responsibility as we're looking at the economy here. I also want to do a shout out to my colleagues from the cabinet, because one of the things that I am, one of the things that I'm really grateful for is the incredible working relationship that the commissioners and Director Pingree have, led by Governor Mills. There is a desire to make sure that we are all focused on improving opportunities for Maine people and businesses, and that we will work together collaboratively. It really is a pleasure to work with such talented people, and I'm very sad, and I'm sure many folks are, that Commissioner Johnson is going to be transitioning. We'll start talking a little bit about the economy, but one of the things that is really important is that economic development and workforce development are walking and working together in lockstep. And I think that that has been one of the hallmarks of this administration, starting with the governor's economic development plan that Commissioner Johnson and Director Pingree have really helped shape and lead and implement. For us at the Department of Labor, when we look at what's important, we try to, we look at it through a data lens. What are we seeing? I think we've all heard there's a tight labor market. What does that mean? And Patrick, as you mentioned, one of the things that means is that there's an incredible opportunity to bring people into the workforce who may have been left on the sidelines in the past. There's also an opportunity to look at the productivity. Our Center for Workforce Research and Information recently released a report that said, yeah, we've got a tight labor market, and we are also seeing increased productivity. So it's not like a doomsday scenario. The Maine economy, and I'll leave this to Commissioner Johnson because she will say this much better than I can, but there is incredible opportunity ahead for the state, and we are experiencing that right now. For us at the department, we have two bureaus that are very laser focused on employment opportunities for all Maine people. One is our Bureau of Employment Services. And last year, I want to pull the number. I should have it right in front of me here. We had 25,894 in-person visits to our career centers in Maine. There are 11 career centers across the state. And this is a one-stop location where both employers and workers can come and have their needs met. And as an example of the kind of work that we do, in Southern Maine, our business outreach folks did a quick survey of employers in the area and said, what are you seeing? I mean, we all have heard tight labor market, but when the employers were asked, how could we at the Career Center be helpful? Folks in the employer community were asking for information on how do they hire and work with new Mainers? What information can we help with around childcare, transportation, and I know Commissioner Van Note will talk a little bit about this, housing, and also on how do we work with folks who are re-entering the workforce? They may have been incarcerated or they're in recovery, and veterans. And the good thing about that is that through we are partnering, we have individual programs here at the department, and then we partner with pretty much all of the agencies that provide any additional services. And so we were able to meet with the employers. We intended this as a one-time event of just kind of bring some employers together, provide some resources. But because folks were so interested and engaged, they've asked to meet on a monthly basis to provide kind of a forum so that if employers had specific interest and needs, they could dig in a little bit more to the services that we're providing. The other group of folks that I did not mention was our Bureau of Rehab Services. One of the I don't know that I want to say a benefit of the pandemic because it's really a stretch to think of anything as being a benefit. But one of the lessons we learned was around remote work. And also, we're seeing that folks who have a disability are being engaged in the workforce at a higher rate. Employers are more willing to think about, to not be intimidated by the fact that someone has a disability and to work with us. And we have about 8,000 individuals with some sort of disability who are working with our Bureau of Rehab Services right now. And over 6,000 of those folks have an employment plan. So that is another untapped resource that employers are exploring and beginning to tap into. I don't want to just keep talking, which I could easily, but I do want to just mention a couple of things. I want to follow up on something that Michael Bork said about the importance of safety and health on the job. Our Bureau of Labor Standards last year offered 128 workplace safety classes to help directly support the safety of Maine's workforce. One of the things, Patrick, that I know you want me to mention is the paid family medical leave program. That was one of the new laws that was passed by the legislature, and we are tasked with implementing it. As of yesterday, over 10,000 employers had already registered on the employee portal for the paid family leave program. And I've really appreciated the partnership that we've had with the business community to get the word out about the program. I think I should probably, I don't know if that's been 10 minutes, but it probably has. So why don't I just stop there?
Commissioner, thank you. I have said the implementation of the paid family medical leave program is one of the hardest tasks, not only in state government now, but in recent years, and do want to acknowledge the hard work of everybody at the Department of Labor to put that in place, explain this to employees and employers alike. I did want to have a little bit of time for questions. I'll just begin. I've been struck with the university system, the community college, that there is an increasing emphasis on internships. And I wanted to see, for employers on this call today, are you seeing some increase in that opportunity for people at the collegiate level, community college level, and also how to get involved if an employer does want to start participating in an internship program?
So Patrick, for us, we really focus on apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship, which is more structured than just an internship. And we have seen a dramatic increase in the number of employers who are reaching out to us. We have on our registered apprenticeship page, there is information for employers on there. It is not limited to certain sectors. And we are also partnering with both the community college and the university on providing the related classroom instruction for registered apprenticeships. This is an area that employers are definitely the lead partner. The employer determines what the skills and competencies are. And then in a registered apprenticeship, you have a minimum of 144 hours of related classroom instruction and 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. So it really does provide a nice package. And we have seen registered apprenticeships growing. We had our first ever apprenticeship summit in the fall. We weren't sure what kind of an uptake there would be on it. We anticipated 100 people. We had to expand it, and there were 250 employers and educators participating in that event in November.
Are there specific industries that are providing those apprenticeships? And furthermore, do you see skill gaps right now in Maine's labor force that needs particular focus?
Well, anyone can have a registered apprentice, and so we're willing to work with any sector. We have traditionally it has been the construction industry that has had, the building trades have a long history of registered apprentices. We're seeing new opportunities in things like IT, cybersecurity. Maine had the first in the country registered apprenticeship program in aquaculture. So it can be across the board. We're also looking at teaching. We have we're working with some of the schools on registered apprenticeship pathways in education as well. So it really can be anything. And we have a team here willing to work with any employer who's interested. And there's information on the apprenticeship webpage for both employers, for people who are interested in exploring, and for some general information about the programs.
Last question. I'll see if there's any questions in the chat, but from a regulatory standpoint, do you anticipate in 2025 any major actions from the Department of Labor that the business community should start planning for?
When
any new regulations or any new uh, uh, initiating any more rulemakings that the Department of Labor will be looking at in 2025?
So for us, I think the only rulemaking that I am currently aware of is some rulemaking around prevailing wage. So it's a kind of a narrower subset, but the legislative session just started, so who knows what we'll be doing.
I think we have one question from Kim. If you could identify yourself and ask your question. Richard, are we able to unmute Kim?
I have asked Kim, if you can, I've asked if you'd like to unmute. Go ahead and unmute, and you can ask your question.
If not, if maybe we come back to Kim, not seeing that raised hand anymore.
And you can also just put your question into Q&A, and we can answer it that way as well.
If not, I think we should turn to Commissioner Johnson. I was struck just at the end of the year in Q3 that Maine's gross state product continued to outperform the regional economy. And it has been a trend line that we've had individual quarters, but it really has been a real trend for the state's economy of outperforming the regional economy coming out of the pandemic. And during that period, during the pandemic, coming out of that pandemic, the business community has been so lucky to have Commissioner Johnson at the forefront leading these efforts, from creating tax credits for business investment to really focused on Maine's rural economy. We've always had a stalwart supporter in Commissioner Johnson. We were so disappointed. I can't say it any other way that we weren't going to have another year or two working together, but we are so grateful that you stepped up first for state leadership in the role of Commissioner of Department of Economic and Community Development. Commissioner Johnson, I'd love to have you provide your insights into the state's economy and key priorities for DECD.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick, and thanks everyone. This role has been just one of the most incredible honors to do. And so I appreciate kind of the last 6 years of partnership with all of you as we work through some really difficult times. And to Patrick's point, sometimes our GDP grew faster than maybe it ever has. There's a difference between growth and are you all hearing an echo? Apparently, Richard's hearing an echo. So what happens when you come into the state office building, and instead of doing it someplace where there's actually good internet? Do you want to go to somebody? Do you want to go to Anna and come back? I'll log back out and try again.
Are you able to jump in now? Take.
I was gonna say
well,
maybe Bruce. Heather, try speaking again.
Is that better?
No, sorry.
No. Okay.
Bruce, not your fault. I just saw that he was unmuted. Okay, sure.
Thank you, Hannah, for jumping in. Just a quick introduction if people are unaware of the Office of Policy Innovation and the Future. It is a huge task. I was reflecting on we're at a year from the storms that dramatically affected our coastal communities. Director Pingree's been at the forefront at the response planning for a changing climate. Furthermore, the work has been focused on municipal engagement, including housing development, which is one of the Maine State Chamber's top priorities. And so appreciative, Director Pingree, for you joining us this morning.
Great. Well, thank you, Patrick. And Heather's not here, but I do want to just echo your comments and Laura's comments. Oh, she's back. We're going to continue to celebrate. Heather, she's decided to not leave for a month and a half. That gives us just a month and a half to torture her, but we are so sad she's leaving, and she's been an incredible partner in literally every single thing that we are involved in. So just keep saying that. Patrick, thank you very much. And I just really do want to thank the Chamber for stepping up. I'm going to give just a couple of highlights, and Richard has some slides. I think I'm the only person sharing slides. I'm a director, not a commissioner. So I like to bring all the information about the projects we're working on. Again, I run the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation and the Future. Governor Mills tasks us with long-term planning projects that seek to engage folks across state government, folks in communities, key stakeholders. And so it is a great job. I get to work on lots of different projects. And I'm going to give you just a couple of highlights this morning of, I'd say, some breaking news items, some bigger projects we're working on in some areas that I think are of interest to the state chamber. Again, I'm super appreciative of Patrick's leadership on a couple of these big topics that are going to be important this upcoming legislative session, and I think a big deal for both the state's economy and communities. Just going to highlight the first one. Just yesterday, a $22 million federal grant from EDA was announced for Maine's Forest Bioproducts Advanced Manufacturing Tech Hub. So it is a mouthful, but it is a big, big deal. Maine was named one of 31 tech hubs nationally a couple of years ago, and we competed in the first round of funding and did not receive funding, and we were just given notice that we are now receiving about half of what we applied for, but nearly more than $22 million is still a big, big deal for the state of Maine. So these are investments at Maine Technology Institute and the University of Maine primarily. I work on this project with my team, with MTI and UMaine, lots of others across the state, and especially Heather Johnson and her team. So this is really about investing in the future of Maine's forest products industry. And again, I think everybody in the call knows why we think this work is so exciting, whether it's nanocellulose, advanced forest products that can be implemented in the construction industry or packaging industry, We know that these companies are growing in Maine. There's lots more potential, and the federal government has recognized that Maine could be a global leader. So just a big deal, and just want to highlight that. Next slide, I'm going to switch gears totally to a different topic, and it's what Patrick mentioned. Our office has been working on climate and energy, and particularly resilience topics. How do we better respond to the kinds of storm events the state has been seeing? We just didn't celebrate, but marked the anniversaries of the 3 major winter storms that hit Maine a little over a year ago in December and January. In the sort of wake of those storms, the legislature passed a $65 million recovery bill as part of the supplemental budget. And Bruce and his team, Heather on the business recovery, DMR on the working waterfront recovery, we've all been working together to help rebuild what was damaged, especially with our partners at MEMA. But the governor knew that we had to do much more to prepare for the storms ahead. So she issued an executive order this past May that convened a commission that has spent about 6 months saying we need to do much more to urgently prepare for storms. Next slide. And we need a long-term infrastructure plan for the state of Maine around how do we ensure that our state is ready. Our emergency management and communication systems, our communities are prepared, and our infrastructure is prepared. That's a tall order. It's not going to happen in one fell swoop. But we did put out the first interim report of this commission in November with both immediate actions the state should take. How do we start to really cement the foundation for resilience across all of our communities? And then how do we long-term really figure out how to prepare for and pay for the kind of changes that need to be made to be ready for, whether it's fire events, which we are seeing obviously in other parts of the country. Clearly the rain and storm surge events are what we're more familiar with in Maine. Hurricanes, heat events, lots of challenges that we didn't think we had to contemplate in Maine quite so soon. Next slide. So the good news is the legislature, the leaders on both sides of the aisle, the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, and both Republican leaders in both chambers have come on board of the governor's first bill, LD1, an act to increase storm preparedness for Maine's communities, homes, and infrastructure. LD1 will be heard, I think, in a couple of weeks in the legislature, and it's a bipartisan effort to help Maine homeowners be more prepared for storm events, which helps manage insurance costs, but also clearly helps people who have tipped over oil barrels, who are losing their roofs, who are having flooded electrical panels. So a new program at the Bureau of Insurance to help homeowners better prepare for emergency events. We have investments in MEMA, in communication systems, and recovering from both the storms we are still trying to pay for with FEMA match, but also better prepare for future storm events. And last, we are putting significant investment into the new Maine Office of Community Affairs to better understand the risks that we are facing. We learned traveling the state over the course of the past year that our flood maps, especially in northern and western Maine, are not up to date. Communities are really need more data to plan for their infrastructure. We need more floodplain managers on the ground to help communities participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. So trying to make those investments through LD1. So big deal, and really grateful to have bipartisan support for that. Just a couple other highlights. Next slide. I think folks have heard us talk a fair amount about the creation of the new Maine Office of Community Affairs. The governor felt that Maine communities needed more support planning for challenges from storm events to housing to land use and economic development planning. We've been working closely with Heather and many others on launching this office that really will be a one-stop shop for many of the state's planning programs, grant programs that handhold communities that have a lot on their plate. So the office was created in the supplemental budget. We have the first director, Samantha Horn, who has started, and the biennial budget proposes the continued movement of a number of programs into the new Maine Office of Community Affairs. If that all is passed, this office will be up and running by July 1. The state has a significant grant from the National Oceanic Administration, NOAA, a nearly $70 million grant to support resilience in communities, and most of that grant is going into this new Maine Office of Community Affairs. Totally switching gears, but on the issue of planning, next slide. An issue I know Patrick has been passionate and supportive of. We have been working again with Maine Housing and DECD over the last couple of years to both understand the challenge we are facing when it comes to housing and think about how do we solve this challenge. Go back one slide. So we know that I think many folks are aware of the study we did to quantify the underproduction and the need for housing to meet both the housing demand of folks who are living in Maine, but also the future demand of folks we need in our workforce, especially by 2030. So we did this big study. We know that we have a huge number required by 2030. And we have been working now collaboratively with folks across state government, with communities, with building professionals to understand what are the other levers, policy levers, funding levers to help actually increase the pace of housing production. So at the end of this month, a new study is going to come out done by this same group who did this big production needs study to share what are the things that Maine could do to increase the pace of housing production in our communities, as a state, with permitting, with land use strategies and funding strategies. So stay tuned for that. Again, I know the Chamber has been engaged and supportive with lots of their members, but we think that housing is really impacting all other sectors of our communities and our economy. And we need a sort of a much more creative and all hands on deck approach to help actually meet the challenge. So just the last issue I'll hit is another issue where the Chamber has been a huge partner. Next slide. And that is the launch of the new the Office of New Americans. So just want to update folks. This office was proposed by executive order by the governor a couple of years ago. It was then put into statute by the legislature last year. And we are now in an exciting place in that the first director of the Maine Office of Community Affairs has been hired. Sorry, Laura, we stole him from the Maine Department of Labor, but he's a real rock star with lots of experience, and he will start next Tuesday. We plan to work closely with businesses across the state. This office is really about how do we best integrate immigrants into our communities and workforce. We have lots of businesses who have led the way. And we think that this is an exciting way to both one of the many strategies the state has to enhance our workforce. So stay tuned. We would love to have businesses engaged in this work. You've already been incredibly supportive. So I will stop there. But again, thank you, Patrick, for the time and happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Director Pingree. I just reinforce, I have used the regional housing targets. I think it really puts a pragmatic, kind of tangible goal for each county. I've been using those under housing production numbers, the target for 2030, and I think it brings what is a huge challenge for the state on more of a bite-size target for each county. And certainly looking forward to seeing the recommendations from the report in a couple of weeks. One question, and please do raise your hands if you have questions in the audience, but you've been working on resilience for a very long time. I think it was a focusing event for the storms last year, but kind of reflecting over the last year, what has surprised you? You mentioned the floodplains, but for been in the driver's seat on this topic, what has been sort of your reflections on where the state really does need to go to prepare for these storms?
I mean, the great thing is Maine is a very small town. Even our biggest cities are a very small town. And so it's not surprising, but it has been really helpful and exciting to see how much people have responded to this is kind of, especially the last year, as an urgency event that we need to do a better job to plan and, to take care of people who get stuck in their homes and can't manage through week-long power outages, but that we need to be proactive about better planning for our infrastructure. I don't know if anything has been, I think we all were a little surprised by just the significance of those events. On the coast, the storm surge we saw, I lots of friends who are fishermen, have working waterfronts. They didn't really expect this kind of storm surge and sea level rise event to happen so soon. I think people really are now rallying, saying we are ready to rebuild. Just tell us what to do. what working waterfront dock is going to be resilient to a future storm event. And I think as a state, we've been working closely with DOT and the DEP on permitting issues to think about how do we actually really now get our state systems, our engineering practices, our permitting ready to go so that people can rebuild in a way that will last. So, I mean, it's all heartening, but it is certainly overwhelming. And if you're a municipal leader or regional leader, understanding just the magnitude of infrastructure upgrades we need, whether you're on the coast or in a riverfront community, it is a lot. So I think we're all a little surprised just to see just how significant those events are, but it really is, I think, a wake-up call that we need to do this work more quickly. The state needs to be as organized as possible in supporting communities. And I think there has been a sort of better sense of regional approach could be helpful, which isn't always how we do things in Maine.
And last question, unless there are questions in the chat, could you, I've been getting used to the abbreviation MOCA. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the scope of that work? My understanding, it really is going to be consolidated, one-stop shop for municipal engagement and try to support municipalities who are engaging, like housing, like resilience. But could you elaborate a little bit of the scope of that office and how you see this? Where will that office be in a year from now?
Yeah, so MOCA will be a standalone office in state government. It won't have every program that intersects with municipalities. I mean, Bruce runs a local roads program and a planning program. Heather has the community development block grant program and TIFs. But MOCA will be kind of a convening hub to be supportive for communities and help them guide through all the programs of state government that could be helpful to them. The programs that will particularly move into MOCA include the current comprehensive and municipal planning program, the floodplain program, the coastal program at DMR, the housing opportunity program that is currently at DECD, the community resilience partnership program that is in my office, Volunteer Maine, and as well as MUBEC and code enforcement. So it is many of the offices that used to be a part of the former state planning office, but mostly programs that support planning, support regional planning, support local ordinance issues. So I think it's a good start. I think their role will really be to be the kind of first stop that communities come to when they have a question about land use planning issues. We know we have a lot to do, whether it's on housing or resilience, to help communities plan for the challenges they're facing. So again, we think it's a good start to this work, and our new leadership has already hit the ground running, really engaging with towns and regional governments to try to make this successful.
And just so I understand the particulars, the office is up and running, but there is a budget proposal to maintain its staffing support and to formally establish it in the budget. Is that right?
Well, the office was created in the budget and the director was appointed. So there's one woman who's getting everything together, but all of the programs will be moving from other agencies in the biennial budget. Sure. And if that's successful, it will sort of be a robust office with all the agencies I named a part of it by July 1.
Well, thank you. It's incredible scope, some of the most important issues the state within your office. Thank you, Director Pingree. If there aren't any other questions, I'll turn back to see if we have eliminated that echo from Commissioner Johnson.
Is that better, Patrick?
That is crystal clear. Good morning.
I've gone to my personal phone systems to eliminate the trouble. So thank you, Patrick. And I apologize to everyone for that problem. So as you've heard, I will be stepping down on March 1st. We are actively engaged in bringing in new commissioners. So, we expect that transition to go smoothly, and certainly we'll work as an administration collectively to make sure that the new leader of DECD will be up and running and part of this broader administration's support team before I head out. So, I am confident in some of the folks that we're interviewing and really excited about what they will bring to you all over the next couple of years. So But again, thank you for your partnership over the last 6 years. I really appreciate it. So what's happening at DCD? We have a lot of things going on. We continue to work on implementation of the strategic plan. One of the things that I feel really strongly about and will be done before I leave is a dashboard so that you can all see, and anybody in Maine that wants to see, where we are in any given metric or any given project can see that. It'll be real-time live feed of data coming out of the federal government, data coming from some of Commissioner Sportman's team at DOL. It will just be an easy place to go look at data. As an example, it will have kind of GDP growth versus the US and versus the region so that you can see, are we growing faster than the region or than the country or not? It looks at it by sector, so you can see what sectors are really are seeing growth, where are we seeing real investment, that type of work. And then it will clearly outline the top 3 goals. So one of them is value-added productivity, and I think we've talked a little bit about this. This is a discussion that I think maybe people weren't having 10 years ago, but we spend a lot of time doing now. We know we're not going to fix the workforce shortage, right? The demographics just aren't on our side. If we get every person in Maine working, we still don't have enough people to have our economy grow at the rate that it can grow, as you all know. So, but value-added productivity is up 11.7% from 2019, so almost 12% there. We certainly are seeing some industries grow faster, and we're seeing reinvestment in certain parts of the state in a different way that is growing value-added productivity and allowing those businesses to continue to grow more quickly. So in partnership with MEP and the university and a number of others, we're trying to collect that information and make sure that people can see like what other businesses are doing that is working, what is allowing them to kind of fill gaps that they might have with technology, with innovation, with modernization. And then certainly we are actively working on programs to support that work. So things like process improvement at MEP, and we're out looking for some additional funds to be able to help create seed investment for businesses to be able to invest in their own businesses. So, what we've seen is that local investment in companies has slowed a little bit given interest rates and lots of other risks. And so one of the things we're trying to look at is how do we help de-risk that for companies, not do it for companies, because what we've seen are companies, as you all know, are actively doing that already. But if we can lower that risk threshold just a little bit, it will move some of that schedule forward. And so that's one of the things that we are doing. So you'll see that dashboard on our website mid-February. And then the other thing many of you have been involved in is the new tax credit program, which is called Dirigo. We did rulemaking on that last year, started taking applications in July, and that went into effect January 1st. So again, that is a capital investment tax credit. So if businesses invest, and everyone in the state now is covered. So all counties are covered, which is also new. We think it's really important that that everyone across the state can kind of make these investments in all counties. It's important for our economy to be successful in all counties. And so again, we'll see more of that in certain counties than others. And for Saginaw, Cumberland, and York, it's 5%. For the other counties, it's 10%. There's also a workforce training component there, $2,000 per worker for certified trainings. So really trying to meet the two key kind of current modes for economic growth, which is capital investment, which supports local communities and business productivity, as well as worker training, which again will move the watermark in general for the economy. So excited about that. We'll continue to communicate that. Dirigo is also very streamlined, so works great for smaller and mid-sized businesses. The prior tax credits were all very complicated and tended to be good for $100 million and above projects. Dirigo, I would say the sweet spot for Dirigo is about a $25 million to $50 million project, but certainly is accessible to much smaller projects as well. And so I think that's a really important thing as we grow Maine's economy and look at where that growth comes from. We need to make sure that we're supporting small businesses and making sure that they are having tools to support their kind of reinvestment, because that's a critical component. And I don't know if you talked at all about the AI task force at all. Okay. So we are, again, as we think about kind of value added productivity, and what are the tools and how do we really leverage tools to be more successful, if we know we have to do everything we can for workforce development 100%, and teams are doing that work now. Even if they are completely successful, we don't have enough people, right? We know both of those things to be true. And so really trying to balance looking at technology and how that can help. And certainly if you think about state government, we're no different than anybody else, right? We will need to think about leveraging technology to be successful in supporting businesses, residents, and communities. And so the governor's convened an AI task force really to look at kind of both sides, right, of AI. There certainly are some risks, and there will be, right, a certain set of thought leadership there around security, privacy, some of that work. But then I think we also will be really careful to be on the other side of that equation too. What happens when you use your phone? Sorry, guys. To think about, like, what are the opportunities? Where's the leverage, right? What are we doing to make sure that that we are taking advantage of this technology? Because other states are, and other business communities certainly are. I think we tend to be all or nothing and be really cautious about it. I think there are some clear opportunities for us to think about that differently, and be a little bit more aggressive. And as we meet with people across the country, we're seeing real opportunity present itself. Actually did a body of work with some folks at Stanford, and they were looking at how can you use that in state government to meet people's needs. And it was really interesting, the work, and they were taking business cases and aligning them into other areas. Like, for example, how do we improve regulatory process by using technology, right? That's something that I think if Melanie were here, she would talk a little bit about and is investing in. And I think as a state, there are real opportunities for us to be more efficient and to be more helpful and supportive by leveraging some of these technologies. So the AI task force is something that I think will be a real tool for folks as we continue to kind of move forward and think about improved productivity, not just by workforce and numbers of people and skills, but also by technology and other tools that we have at our disposal. Having said that, certainly we are actively following the legislative session and reading the bill titles and trying to figure out what's coming. We haven't heard a lot in our particular arena. As you know, the committees have changed. And so the committee that used to have oversight to our work has now been consolidated with some housing work. So we don't have kind of a great sense for what that means yet. And again, the bills are coming out now, so we'll keep an eye on those and stay connected to the business community on that work. Patrick, with that, maybe questions?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Johnson. It's interesting. I think my predecessor, we have about a stack of dozen reports about broadband expansion and its importance for the state. And really, I think 2025 is going to be an execution. A lot of the broadband dollars being put to work. And it is at the same time where the opportunities to integrate AI, data analysis, to improve efficiency of business has never been had a greater potential. Do you see how, collaborating on how businesses start to utilize these tools, and any thoughts on how we might be able to work together, best practices to really take full advantage of these new technologies and the expansion of broadband service in the state?
Yeah, so I think how do we take advantage of the tools will evolve over time. And I don't know that we've found the perfect model yet, but I think it's a good point in that those discussions have started, but we need to get more clear, in my opinion, and direct. And it's a broad network of partnerships. So we need to make sure that network is more solutions oriented versus philosophical on the technology. I think we've started on here's what the technology can do. And I think that's interesting, but like, what does that mean to individual businesses, and how do we think through some of that process work with businesses? I mean, and the core is data, right? You can't leverage this technology if you don't have the right data sets, and if you don't have clean data, right? Because it's junk in, junk out. It also isn't a miracle cure, which I think we have to be careful of, right? There's a lot to how we do this work. And so I think there's more to come there, Patrick, and wide open to ideas on what those better delivery mechanisms are. Says the person coming from a cell phone, because I can't get anything else to work. That's probably a bad thing. But and broadband the broadband plan looks good. We did the low Earth orb satellite stuff at the end of last year to make sure that anybody that wanted some type of connection could get one. And now we're into the last round of upgrading with BEAD funding that is pretty well thought out, and I think will be executed in the next 2 years.
Yeah, a chat that really hit on exactly what you just commented on AI and its application to government. You are constantly talking to business looking to grow, expand into the state. Where do you, just to conclude, where do you see Maine's opportunities for continued growth? Director Pingree mentioned the grant from yesterday, which is so encouraging for our bio-based and new products in our forestry industries. But what are you seeing as potential Maine's comparative advantages going forward for new investments?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, right, we spend time thinking about innovation and heritage. We spend a lot of time thinking about innovation and heritage industries, right? Because there are strong supply chains. There are a lot of people that know how to do that work. And there is broader infrastructure across the state to do that work, be it rail, be it trucking, be it logging, the other, the whole system's there. So for fishing and farming, I think we continue to see that growth. And there, green building materials are really taking off, and green packaging, as they find solutions to PFAS-free kind of backyard compostable packaging here in Maine, right? There's global demand for that work. And so, I think there's clear growth and investment there. We're seeing that in green building materials as well. We've been having a lot of conversations with mass timber companies and parts of that supply chain to try to figure out when is the right time for somebody, because you don't want to be too far ahead of the demand, but you also don't want to lose opportunity. And so those companies are kind of having that discussion now, and have been for the last few years. So, and they have a pretty clear guidance on what that looks like for them. So we're seeing good growth there. I think we have to be a little bit patient with the mass timber piece. Again, it's a really consumer market driven piece, and we can change that market demand, right, with subsidies and money, but without that, there is a normal market trajectory that they are counting on and are going to build manufacturing facilities against what they are seeing as the market trajectory. So that's one piece. I would say we are seeing active growth in life sciences. If you include veterinary and life sciences together, we are outpacing kind of the Northeast, which again is most people think Cambridge. Rhode Island has made hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in life sciences over the last 2 or 3 years. Worcester, as just a city, is making really significant investments. But we are seeing active growth there, and I think we need to make sure that we are capitalizing on that. So, we have places where I would say investment is a little bit stagnant, and we want to kind of get that investment back started. But then we have places where investment is spinning. And if you just add a little grease to that wheel, it'll spin significantly faster. And so trying to kind of find that balance between the limited tools and resources that we have to do that work, I think is really the key.
One question on a topic that we've had a number of discussions about is regulatory uncertainty and permitting, and the comparison of doing a proposal in Maine and other states, other regions. Any response to concerns that Maine is a challenging place to invest in because of the permitting risk? Yeah,
as we talk to companies, the standard the standard isn't the pushback. I think they're happy to meet high standards from the companies that we're talking to, happy to meet high standards, leave the bar where it is, right? Leave the expectations alone. It's a speed to permit, and it's about timing. And that's been really where the pushback is. So I think we haven't heard much pushback, even over the last 6 years, on kind of what the standard is. I think people are, as we talk to investors, it's like, we want to invest in Maine in part because the standard is high, in part because, the brand of Maine makes that standard high, and that's a good thing. You want to have, I think most of them are able to meet those standards. Certainly, companies that do business in Europe are able to meet those standards very easily, and others. But it's so our focus with Melanie and DEP has really been about timing, and that's been a struggle that she's well aware of, and I think has been actively trying to solve for. We did apply some of the Maine Jobs and Recovery money to an online tool for DEP, which will at least streamline their process a little bit. It's a very manual process, and I'm sure DEP knew that, but I'm not sure the rest of us maybe understood how manual that process was, until people weren't in the office every day, and it clearly things weren't moving, and people had to go into the office to find literal paper and cash for permits. And so, again, that's a place where technology can really help. If you buy a $2 part on Amazon, you know exactly where it is at 2:00 in the morning. But we were having large kind of developments not being able to see where they were in the process. And that speaks to predictability, not timing. So that will help with knowing where it is in the process. It doesn't help with the timing equation. And so we continue to work on that as we go.
Well, I know that the DEP has been working on evaluating the use of third-party reviews.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's some legislation. We certainly see that opportunity. I think New Jersey has adopted some of the utilization of third-party permitting, try to get through some of the backlog, as it really has come up in context of housing development. Commissioner Johnson, thank you so much for joining us and for your 6 years leading the Department of Economic and Community Development. It has been a great partnership with the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, and we look forward to seeing your next professional steps in the Maine economy.
Thanks, Patrick.
I do want to turn to Commissioner Van Note, who hangs out with me down with the W's here. Commissioner Van Note, I know we've had previous conversations that in leading the department that is entrusted to making the entire economy run, that it's been some bubble gum and duct tape in previous years, but that era is really behind us. And I've been so encouraged to see a lot of the federal investments that have been announced in the state, bridge work, but I'd love to hear an update as you look ahead for 2025 and key priorities for the Department of Transportation.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Patrick, and all your members for everything you do to keep Maine an economically vibrant place. And that's a big part of our job. Right in our mission, we have economic opportunity and quality of life. I know when people think of DOT, they think of paving roads and building stuff, and that is what we do, but we do it for a reason. Doing it in something that doesn't help a business or help a community isn't worthwhile. So it's all about how the road is used. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I also just have to, like the other commissioners and Director Pingree, or I'm just going to use first names, everybody, because that's what we do. How humbling it is, and how honored I am just to serve with these people and work for the governor and do the work of the state. It really is a unbelievable team. When you, and Heather, of course, leaving. That's sad for all of us, but it's always one of those bittersweet things, I have no doubt she'll land in a good place, but I'll definitely miss working with her. We have very similar kind of pragmatic. Okay, what do we got to do? what do we got to do? What do we got to do to help to get something done? And it's been a real honor and privilege. What I'm going to hit on is every year we put out a work plan that's coming out soon. I'll mention that and some priorities in that. I'll briefly discuss the funding that supports that and kind of the outlook on that, how things are looking, some challenges and opportunities that I'll be able to rifle through quick because we've talked about most of them and they're well known, and a lot of the people on this at this meeting are working on them, and we're working on them with them, and then just kind of an outlook looking forward. So the work plan will be it always comes out early in the calendar year. I expect it in early February this year. DOT tries to be kind of predictable, if you will. Here's our work plan. Here's what we're doing. Work plan will generally be a similar size as the last one put out there. I expect it to be around $4.8 billion over 3 years. That's all funding sources: federal, state, private, local, everything put together. So about $1.6 billion a year. I expect that to stay about level. That's a good place to be. As you mentioned, previously years ago, I would use the MacGyver, kind of thing where we were, just making do with what you have. We have definitely made the pivot from making do to making some real progress. We're in this smart and steady place, which I think is the right place to be for us and the industry. There's only so much work you can put out that people can deliver for the people, and you don't want to overheat it and have prices go even higher. So I think we're in the right place. We're also putting out some, this is kind of process oriented just for a second. We spend a lot of time telling people what we're doing. We know we haven't said enough about why we're doing it. So if you get online, we have strategic plans that are online for just about every mode you can think of. We have a new one that will be coming out this year, which we just call the State of the Transportation System Report. That basically, okay, where are we? And in that, we talk about funding levels that will get you to certain places. And there's a MacGyver funding level. There's kind of a mid-range, smart and steady where we are. And then there's aspirational. Obviously, even at smart and steady, there's a lot of things people want to do. But that's kind of, in our view, given the 16 departments, all the activities in state government, that's kind of more aspirational. This smart and steady, we think, is the right place to be. So some priorities in this work plan, a lot of it is bread and butter stuff that people expect, roads, making sure they're smooth, some rural reconstruction, a lot of investment in bridges. As you'll find, that's a big issue for us and a challenge moving forward. So there's a lot of money going on there. But we're also using some federal discretionary funds to allow us to invest in villages, downtowns, where economic vibrancy can be really, something at human scale, thinking about pedestrians, parking, lower speed. As you're driving around, there's places where you want to make time, and the other places where you should be doing business and, living. And so we're investing in that. That's a new program that's been very popular. We continue to work on transit, including workforce transit, Laura was talking about. That's a real challenge. We're working with BIW on some work that's going on down there right now. We're investing in freight rail, especially in more rural areas, and passenger rails. We're trying to work on more stations in Portland and in West Falmouth, and investing in ports, ferry service investments, and working with Hannah. We've adapted to adaptation over here at DOT, and so all those programs, we're using the same kind of skills in different areas, and it's actually, it's fun for us to do that. You will find programs within that work plan that have been around for a while that are kind of municipal partnership initiatives where they can just come and say, we have a deal, let's go 50-50 generally. Towns with lower valuations, it's more state. We also have a business partnership initiative that says, okay, we're doing something right here. Can we partner with the town and you and do something? We have an industrial access program, which somebody needs a siding, something like that, they come forward. So we have some kind of demand response programs, and that will continue. Second topic is just the funding that supports it. I won't spend a lot of time. There's going to be a big discussion starting at the federal level. Kind of immediate, near, and long term. Immediate. Anybody who says they know exactly what's going to happen in Washington, no, not so much. But I do know that certain priorities that are the right priorities, but may have to slow down due to funding. Things like our Windport project and things like that. We're going to continue to work on that and make a more refined, better design so that when funding opportunities come up, whether it's from the public or private sector, we'll have a better story to tell and have a better design and move that forward. So we're not stopping work, we're just adapting. And other priorities, who knows, we'll wait and see, but we're going to keep working on the things that make sense for Maine. In the kind of near term, as you said, the bill that was passed, bipartisan infrastructure law 2021, that was a game changer for Maine. It provided some extra formula funds, but it provided these discretionary programs that we could go after. Maine is in the top 5 per capita of those kind of programs, given the strength of our delegation. And related to that is congressionally designated spending, CDS. We work closely with the delegation to make sure we're getting Maine's fair share for the transportation system. And that will continue. That bill ends September 26th. So it's kind of like, that's 20 months, So that's that reauthorization will be a thing. Looking forward longer term, don't know. Right now, we're just hoping they pass an appropriations bill, kind of on the immediate. But I'm cautiously bullish about, most of transportation investment, just because it has really widespread support. And I don't think, I think this bill has set a standard that states are getting used to and the public's getting used to. So I think it'll be hard to go back completely, but time will tell. At the state level, just in June of 23, the legislature exercised some real bipartisan wisdom and kind of stepped up for transportation in a way it hasn't before, including 40% of auto-related sales tax, which provided about $100 million a year for transportation. Very thankful for that. It just allows us to plan and not have it all be, one-time kind of fundraising. That provided about half of our unmet capital need. So there's still discussions, and I believe those discussions will continue. I mean, there's tightness in budgets on both sides, and some people may want to redirect, and some people may direct more. So, stay tuned. I expect that to be a discussion this session. So, kind of moving to challenges and opportunities. Everybody knows these, but we're not immune. But workforce, long conversations with Laura and what we can do, and really appreciate her work there. It's big for internal and external for the construction industry. Very related to workforce, of course, is everything we just talked about. Housing. You can be trained, but if you don't have a place to live and don't have a place for childcare, so those things are big for us too. For us, I'm still wondering where the new normal is in terms of working, office versus not. For us, we have only about 25% of our workforce are typical office workers. A lot are in the field and in construction, and you say telework and they go, what? Is that a Teams meeting in the middle of the day? It's not their life. So finding that right balance, and we continue to try to find it, but I know we will. So that's something that we continue to work on here. On the subject of permitting, worked with, following up on Heather's thoughts on permitting. I know that you were talking about third party kind of stuff, and I know Melanie's working on that huge, and that's and we're kind of a model for that, if you will, because we have an environmental office, and it's not. We do so much permitting that we created an office to kind of do that, and I can say so that if the same thing is extended to private industry, the ability to do that kind of work, I know it will help. Related to that, permitting appeals. That's an issue that I think we have to grapple with. You might have read recently that we just had our 8th successful court victory on the Frankwood Bridge between Brunswick and Topsham in a row. That's all post permitting. That's all after the state and federal government has said this is, after a 3-year process, has said this is the way to go. And so those kind of things about private appeals, privately funded appeals that can really draw things out. That one was a little, that's just an example. We have several of them. That one, if I had followed the advice of counsel 2 or 3 years ago, well, there was a debate, but if I had followed the advice of more risk intolerant counsel, they said you should wait for all appeals to be done before you start the job, and that had a certain appeal. But we said we just couldn't wait because of the bridge condition, and we just went. So this feeling of like, well, I really hope we win, kind of stuff after you're building it. That's something that, and I know it's not unique to DOT. So that's a thing moving forward for challenge and opportunity. And more pragmatic, bridges are going to be a continuing thing in Maine. I'm not worried about it, catastrophic safety type issues. No one's going to go through them because we will inspect, close, or do whatever we have to do. But even at this level of investment, which is, I think, as much as we can, we just have a lot of bridges spread out all over the place on some little used roads that we're going to have to find a different way. So we got to challenge ourselves here and challenge industry about how do we. I see us having a catalog of cookie cutter bridges and saying, let's do 10 of these, boom, that kind of stuff. We're going to have to move into that as we move forward. And to wrap up, just looking forward and outlook, I'm more than cautiously bullish. I mean, we've turned a corner. We have turned a corner. We're in a place that is, in my view, the right place, not Goldilocks, not too soft, not, right in the middle. That's smart and steady progress. We shouldn't be down to MacGyver. Aspirational is just not fair to the rest of the state and in the needs of all the rest of the state. It's where industry and us and everybody can produce right now. We'll look for new ways, but it's been heartening to work with a group of 1,600 people here, and that hasn't changed much. We keep trying to hire, but it's not easy. But our work plan face values have followed national trends of construction inflation was up 70% in the last 6 years, based on national numbers, and Maine's in the same ballpark. So the face value of our work plans has gone up huge. That represents roughly about 20% more widgets, more actual productions, and the rest is just price. The rest is just price. So I think we're in a good place, and if we can sustain the fuel, into our production machine, I think we'll stay in that good place. So thanks for the opportunity, Patrick.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a couple questions, but one aspect that I wanted to talk about is sort of Maine's trade opportunities. When we first got to know each other, IMSCIP was just being developed. There's been a lot of uncertainty with port strikes and reshoring, and could you maybe comment on Maine's opportunity with freight and port and trade? It does seem as though we've made some progress with our port infrastructure, but maybe give a little bit more context to Maine's opportunities in port and freight transportation.
Yeah, the Maine International Trade Center, Wade Merritt, who's on the Maine Port Authority board that I chair, actually would probably give a better, more comprehensive answer. But in terms of the infrastructure that makes things happen, that actually allows, we're kind of like spigots and hoses, and the stuff that goes through it is, industry. The IMT has grew out of, it was a phoenix down there. I mean, it was just kind of, I recall I was a deputy at the time, and, we have this photo that we call the tumbleweeds photo, which is literally like stuff just blowing around down there. And so that was a long time ago with mostly federal money. There's been well over like 120 million invested down there. Just recently, the cold storage building has grown through, and that was largely private investment. That's due to open reportedly next month sometime. That's a major deal. It's a real vote of confidence of private investment to say, let's be getting in there, state of the art. Even this time of year, you go outside to warm up. That thing is that does the job. So in terms of that market and that port, we expect really good things. And the actual international trade market is still in kind of a lull post-pandemic. There was the wow factor where the price of boxes, TEU, equivalent units, the boxes you see moving around down on the water, was in the stratosphere, like 2,000-3,000 a box. I mean, it's just what they were pricing. So the number of boxes being moved spiked, and then post COVID, when supply chains kind of like resettled, it has gone down from then, but kind of had to. That was a COVID sugar high. So right now, if you actually looked at our numbers, you say boxes are going down from everywhere in the world. So that's kind of a shorter term thing, but between with this investment, with AIMSCIP coming every week, I mean, you can't help but have a lot better connection to Europe and the world when someone's coming every week, and that's made possible by that port. So it's a success story that always has more opportunity.
There's two projects that I'm particularly excited about, one nearing completion, one kind of midstream. First, I was visiting Presque Isle for the first time in a long time last year, and I'm really excited about the downtown of Presque Isle and the vision of having a bypass there, really reducing the truck traffic, the safety. Could you comment on that? That's a big project for Aroostook County.
It sure is. That's the only new capacity highway that we're working on. So that is the southerly section of that was actually first permitted in 2010. It hasn't been constructed largely because of money, but with this new bill that we talked about, it became available. So it's kind of forwarding a vision that allowed the truck traffic to get out. And on a parallel track, while that was happening, we started working with the town in one of these partnership initiatives that I spoke of, the Village Partnership Initiative, which is one, like when Hannah was talking, that we have certain programs that MOCA will know about. This is kind of one of them, where we go in and say, okay, town, how do you want this to look? Because we know, showing up from Augusta and saying, hey, we're here to help, let us tell you what it should be, it's not the way to go. And so they've gone through, and we provide seed money to work with them on a cost share basis for them to decide what they want their downtown to look like. And after that process, we say, okay, now we'll try to get competitive federal money for a downtown reinvestment there. But you're in for something. And it's like significant. It's like, 2-3 million they're in for, but we're talking trying to get 24 or so for that. And after that process, if it's their plan, they sign up. And so we're in the process now of trying to find that money and competitively going after it. And it shows how you have to think in terms of a system. Even at DOT, we tend to think of projects like you're building this, you're fixing this, you're building this. This project over here allows the other one because this gets this out of here, and now you can design at pedestrian scale for the downtown, a business scale, parking, walking, bicycle, that kind of vibrancy where the trucks are out of town. So it is a great example that I brought up. We've done several village partnership initiatives, and we're trying to, as long as the funding continues, because it's dependent upon either discretionary or special federal funding, not kind of core formula. But our delegation has been very supportive, really likes the program. And so, again, I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to continue that.
Similarly, for growing up in Penobscot County, I was always just chagrined with the truck traffic going through Brewer, and that that was the way to connect from Route 9 and to 95, and so encouraged that the 395 connector correct me if I'm wrong, that will be this year. We're looking to have that operational. I worked on that project back as an intern in college. It's been a long road, pardon the pun, but that's going to be a huge benefit for Brewer, the downtowns, to improve safety. But thank you for your leadership on bringing that. I hope to be on the back seat of one of those first cars going through the 395 there. Well, Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us and for your work. I think it's a testament to your leadership, what you spoke of a bipartisan agreement, getting $100 million going to work for Maine's transportation infrastructure. And couldn't be more pleased to hear this report about the state of Maine's transportation vision.
Thank you for that, but that really wasn't me. I mean, there was a whole legislative. It was, there was a tax committee and a transportation committee and appropriations committee that actually worked it through. I mean, it was a legislative victory. Which those you don't hear about all the time, do you? How people work through and solve a problem. They did, and they can.
Well, with that, if there are any last questions for the commissioners, we're so pleased they join us and for their public service. If anybody has any last questions, if not, I just want to, on behalf of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, really thank all of you for the work you're doing on behalf of the Maine people, Maine business community, and for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you to you and all your members.
Thank you.
Take care.